Hey guys, so today we have a fun one. I am going to be responding to your hot takes and unpopular opinions surrounding beauty and or the beauty community. I've done a couple of these on my channel just over the past couple of years. They're always super fun to film. I always love hearing what you guys have to say. I believe Emily Noel was the first person to film a video like this a couple years back, and recently I saw Kelly Gooch and James Welsh film a video like this, and it re-inspired me to film another one. So I asked you guys on my YouTube community tab and also on Instagram any unpopular opinions that you guys had. So I'm going to start with the ones over on YouTube, and I'm also going to be doing my makeup while we chat. So I'm actually going to start by reapplying my sunscreen because it's been a little while. This is the E.L.F, the new E.L.F Holy Hydration SPF 30 sunscreen. This will be included in my part 2 of the sunscreen roundup, which is coming soon. Okay, so let's start with the one that seems to have the most likes here on YouTube, which is funny. I wonder if more likes means that it is more of a popular opinion, or if that just means that a lot of people thought it was an interesting take. I'm guessing this is actually a pretty popular opinion, just because I agree with it, and I feel like I've heard a lot of people say similar things. And it says, the cycle of hauls and declutters is making me a little sick with beauty channels right now. I'm watching people declutter items they raved about last year and it's frustrating. As a consumer of beauty content, I want to see people use the makeup they convinced me to buy. Recently, I've been watching everyone decluttering the Urban Decay Born to Run palette, which is so frustrating because I'm still loving that, and it's annoying to see people treat something like junk that they raved about last year. And I completely agree with this. And it's funny, my boyfriend was reading through these as well, because I don't know, I always like to hear what his thoughts are on stuff. And he was saying that he notices the same thing in other communities on YouTube that he watches. He watches a lot of guitar reviewers and guitar accessory review channels using my Pacifica Alight foundation. A lot of them will get a new guitar pedal in the mail, usually from the brand, review it, and it's usually a really expensive one. They'll say it's amazing, and then a year later they don't even have it anymore. And I'm not sure if those channels do declutter videos the same way that the beauty community does. I would guess not, but maybe they do. But those guitar reviewers always end up going back to the same less expensive yet reliable pedal that everyone knows and loves. But they convinced a bunch of people to go out and buy this really expensive one because they gave it a good review, and then a year later they don't even own it anymore. But it's interesting to know that other types of audiences feel the same way about their whatever niche they're watching. But going back to beauty, I completely agree. And that's why I love watching Project Pan channels, and just channels that, not even just Project Pan channels, but channels that do shop my stash videos. Those are my favorite types of channels because I like to see people using the makeup that they bought and raved about a few months ago, a year ago, even 2 years ago, And I know from the creator's perspective, it's sometimes those videos on older products don't get as many views, and I think it really depends on how you're framing the video. If you're framing it as a tutorial using this Urban Decay Born to Run palette and you're posting that in 2021, it's probably not going to get very many views. But if you frame it as, oh, a shop my stash using old rediscovered favorites, that kind of thing, at least on my channel, shop my stash videos where I'm using older products get pretty good views. Yeah, I always love seeking out channels that are kind of using what they have. And then going back to the first part of the comment, the cycle of decluttering just to haul or bring in more makeup. And I agree with that as well, because I think for most people, especially just the average consumer, the purpose of decluttering, whether it be your makeup collection or your closet or your kitchen, the point of that is typically to, pare down what you have and not have a ton of stuff going to waste, collecting dust. But with a lot of beauty channels, you see a declutter video and then a couple weeks later you see a giant haul or just a bunch of new stuff coming in. So you're really only decluttering to make room for more stuff. And that's why I really try not to do declutter videos super often, because I don't know, I feel like I shouldn't have to need to declutter that much, but it can be hard to find a balance when you are a YouTuber. And maybe you're receiving things in PR / buying things for review purposes. At that point, the declutter videos aren't necessarily realistic to the average consumer and may not even be that helpful for the average consumer to see. But I forgot to prime. I keep forgetting to use this NYX Angel Veil primer, even though I pulled it out specifically so I'd remember to use it. I think I might take this out of my project pan because I have not been wanting to reach for it, mainly because I just think it's not really doing many favors for my skin right now, that my skin's been a little bit extra dry. I might take a break from that. I don't know. We'll see. This is funny. Two Boys Mom said, why does everyone go off camera to do brows? LOL. I like seeing people do them because everyone does them a little differently. I struggle so hard with brows, so I need all the help I can get. All right. Duly noted. I will leave me doing my brows in the video for you today. For me, it's like I use the same brow products just about every day, and I feel like, you know, how many times do you guys need to see me do my brows? But I probably haven't included it in a video in a while, so maybe every now and then I'll keep it in. But I'm also someone that struggles with my brows quite a bit. I'm not, my brows are like my least favorite part of my makeup routine, and I feel like I have to like really focus to do them, and even then they don't always turn out the way I like them, so that's why I often will leave it out, because it just takes so much time and it's hard for me to like talk while I'm doing them. But it is funny how like all the beauty channels kind of collectively decided not to leave the brows in. I feel like for me it's brows, mascara, and eyelid primer. Those are the three steps that I typically cut out just because they're kind of boring. Okay, Jen said a good shade range isn't just about getting a good blend of, I'm looking for a good brush here, fair, pale, light, medium, and dark, deep shades. It has to have a good blend of undertones too. Not all fair skin is cool, and not all undertones are medium tan. Completely agree. I think there's been so much focus on just having a good range of light to deep shades over the past few years, and maybe not enough focus on also providing a good range of undertones. And so I 100% agree with you. I don't necessarily have anything to add, but I do hope that now the brands have kind of figured out how to have more of an inclusive shade range. Obviously some brands still need to work on that, most brands do, but maybe now we can also work on the undertone inclusivity as well. And then a similar one, being inclusive isn't only about foundation range. Every colored product has to keep people of color in mind. Blush, bronzer, and highlight, but also eyeshadows and nude lipsticks. Absolutely. Again, I just think there's been such a big focus on complexion product inclusivity, like foundation and concealer, and brands really need to start being more aware of that. And influencers too. I myself need to be better about like noticing when a blush shade range is inclusive or not, and maybe trying not to review ones that are clearly not inclusive. This one, I think this one came up in my last unpopular opinions video too. I wish there were more old school style tutorials, like actually teaching techniques to us. Okay, so here's the thing with tutorials. There are still a lot of creators that do those kind of old school tutorials. Typically though, I think they're kind of like the trained pro makeup artists. I'm thinking like Robert Welsh, Julia Adams MUA, Wayne Goss. People like that are still doing those instructional type videos. Using my uoma contour stick here. And I bronzed with the E.L.F. liquid eyeshadow that I've been panning. But I think it's specifically the makeup artists, the trained makeup artists that really should be doing those tutorials. And I just have to seek out the right channels if that's what you're looking for, because I promise you there are still channels that are doing that. But the other thing is, I feel like there's really only so many instructional how-to makeup tutorial style videos that you need before it starts to get a little repetitive. Like, I think if there's a certain technique that you're looking for, like blush draping or winged eyeliner, you can always search that on YouTube and you'll probably come up with a bunch of search results. Maybe none of them are like brand new videos, but there's going to be a tutorial from a few years back that's still relevant. So I really think, you know, if that's the kind of content that you're looking for, you have to seek it out. But, you know, and I've mentioned this before, and every channel who's not tutorial based will say the same thing. Tutorials, especially on my channel, they don't get views. So that what that tells me is that my audience isn't, or at least the majority of my audience really isn't looking for that content from me. So that's why I focus on other things. But I do sprinkle in, you know, tutorial-ish content like 3 looks, 1 palette sometimes, shop my stash, get ready with me style videos, but I'm not going to be like giving you the details of like my techniques because I'm not a trained makeup artist, so I don't really know like the theory behind what I'm doing. I'm just doing what I do. Okay, I'm gonna use my E.L.F. Cantaloupe Duo because I haven't used this in a while. I mentioned that in my recent Shop My Stash video. I don't know if that's gonna be up before this or after, but I mentioned that I hadn't used this in a while and I'm using it now because I didn't use it in that video. But Jennifer said creators do not do long enough wear tests or comment on the wear time of products enough. Longevity is extremely important to me when looking at products. I agree. I definitely think a lot of times you'll see like 8-hour or 6-hour foundation wear tests, and it's like, did this person even leave their house in those 6 to 8 hours? You know what I mean? Like, they're probably in their air-conditioned home, but the average person is getting up at like 6 or 7 a.m., putting on their makeup, and then going through like an 8, 10, 12-hour day, running around, doing all sorts of things. Like, I want to see like some actual wear happening here. So I agree with you. And somebody else commented on this one saying, especially brow and cheek products, everyone usually gets to the wear length of lip and skin products, which makes sense, but brow products I feel are just as important. Yeah, totally. That's something I definitely overlook. I just put way too much blush on. For some reason, I don't pay that much attention to wear time. I think because I don't have super oily skin, so I'm not really as concerned with things wearing off. Like, if something's wearing off by the end of the day, I don't really care, but I know other people care, so I need to start doing a better job like paying attention to that. Rita said, I wish more people in the beauty community would do videos with natural light. Most videos nowadays are highly filtered. They set unrealistic expectations for makeup products. See, the thing is, natural light, I'm actually using mostly natural light today, and actually in most videos I do. I hardly ever turn on my ring light just because I prefer the look of natural light, but the hard thing about natural light is that it's so inconsistent. Like, luckily today it's a pretty clear day, so there's not clouds going in front of the sun every 5 seconds, but it's so unpredictable, and a lot of like especially smaller beauty YouTubers don't really have an option between natural light and studio light, especially if they have like a day job and they're only able to film at night. It's just unrealistic to be able to only rely on natural light. And also, just because a video is using studio lighting doesn't mean that it's filtered. Studio lighting can definitely like wash you out more and make you look a little more perfected, but I feel like I always look better with natural light. Oh, now the sun's going behind the cloud. Okay, great. Perfect timing. Yeah, I think it's one of those things, like, it's easier said than done. I agree. If the natural lighting would just always cooperate and be consistent, then yes, but I do think like maybe adding in some up close shots in natural lighting, or just getting really up close and personal with the camera when you're doing a foundation wear test could really go a long way. But a lot of times with foundation wear tests, like, you're only seeing the foundation from this far, but like a lot of times I'll be like showing you guys a really up close and personal look at my pores so you can really see what it's going to look like up close, even if I am using studio lighting. And typically, even if I am using my studio lighting, if you want to call it that, it's not that professional, you can still see the details. All right, moving over to Instagram, let's see what we got. Another one, I got one like this a while ago. Sunburn blush looks like the person is just sick. How is my question. Like, okay, I'm wondering if you mean having blush on the nose makes you look sick, or just the placement of the blush altogether makes you look sick, because to me, if it's the second one, I disagree, because if anything, I think having a more blushed look to your cheeks makes you look more like vibrant and youthful, whereas when I think sick, I think, okay, you look very pale and like sallow. So to me, it looks the opposite of sick. Now, if you're talking about when there's like a ton of blush concentrated like on the nose, and so it makes you look like you have a bad head cold or something, then I could see where you're coming from. So I guess it really depends. But I think what I've noticed, or my theory with a lot of the unpopular opinions that are like, you know, I don't like this makeup trend, sunburned blush, nose contour, whatever it may be, I think it's probably because you're only noticing that on other people when maybe it's not done well or when it looks obvious. But the people who are doing it well, you might not even notice that they have a nose contour going on, or, you know, when they've done the sunburned blush look, you might not even notice that you don't like it because it looks good. My other theory is like maybe you've tried it once and you just didn't like the way it looked on you, so you completely wrote it off. But either way, I don't know. I think it just really depends on the person and the technique. But I disagree that it makes you look sick. All right, here's one that I wanted to talk about. Club Nebula was a letdown. Some mattes are hard to blend and the shimmers crease. Now, I want to like preface this by saying I haven't tried the Club Nebula palette, and I've actually never tried anything from the brand. Was it Kaleidos? I think it was. So I have nothing to say about the quality of the palette itself, but I wanted to use this as a chance to talk about influencer collabs across the board, not just the Club Nebula palette. I think it's important to keep in mind that with a lot of these influencer collabs, it's getting sent to a lot of that YouTuber's friends. And, you know, I'll be the first to say, like, if one of my YouTube friends sent me a collab that they did with a brand, I would have a very hard time being, like, totally unbiased the way that I would be with another product. And so, you know, I think it's important for anyone who's reviewing a collab as a friend of that YouTuber to mention that there's probably always going to be a little bit of bias happening there. But it can be much harder, I think, with influencer collabs to find completely honest reviews. Because even if the person reviewing it is not necessarily a friend of that creator, they probably don't want to seem like they're just throwing that person under the bus or, you know, dragging their palette because they don't like them, which is usually probably not the case. But it's kind of one of those situations where you just can't win. So it can be very hard to find like truly honest reviews on those kinds of things, at least on YouTube. I don't really know if there's like a good solution to that, but it's something to be aware of, I think. Some people take panning way too seriously. We should enjoy using and panning makeup. And I definitely agree. I think it is certainly possible to take panning a bit too far, to the point where you're just like, hate panning makeup for the sake of using it up. And I also think the thing that always cracks me up is when you see like panning progress photos, especially of eyeshadow palettes, and you see, I guess what you would call like drill pan, where it looks like somebody literally took a drill, like a tiny drill bit, and just drilled to the bottom of the pan. And you can just see like a little tiny tunnel where they concentrated their brush every time they use it. I just don't see the point of hitting pan like that just to have pan showing, because you could use the exact same amount of product and just have like more of a shallower, even dip in the pan, and it would mean you would have used the same amount of product. So that's where I think I always kind of am like, why? If that floats your boat and that's how you enjoy consuming makeup, totally fine. I don't really care. It doesn't affect me at all. But I think at the end of the day, panning should be fun and, you know, I don't know, enjoy your makeup. Okay, MAC is a super boring brand, and I'm surprised they still get products sold. I agree, MAC is boring. Like, I don't purchase from MAC because they're not a cruelty-free brand anyway, but I definitely don't think of MAC as a very interesting or innovative, trend-setting brand. But the thing about MAC is they don't seem to really take advantage of like influencer marketing or social media to grow their brand. It seems like they're very like, they know their audience. Their audience is probably mainly like makeup artists and just people who've been using MAC for years. I think MAC is still an iconic brand, especially for people who don't keep up with the beauty community on social media. It's kind of one of those like department store brands. Like, I think of them on the same playing field as like Clinique, Estee Lauder, you know, those big department store brands. Everyone knows them. And it's a lot of like, you know, maybe older women who are using them. Or in MAC's case, I think it's a lot of just like makeup artists who have been using them for years and they know they can rely on their products. I don't necessarily think that MAC needs to be innovative and setting trends for the industry, because they kind of already just know their audience and they're just doing what they do. But I agree, they are super boring. Not gonna deny that. All right, who was it? Two boys, mom, I'm about to do my brows, so this one's for you. Let's see. Bigger beauty gurus are boring. Small influencers bring the creativity to the community. I don't know. I think what ends up happening is the bigger you get on social media, the more you kind of become your own brand in a way. Like, I think with bigger channels, when you start getting up to like, you know, 500,000, 1 million followers, And there are still some large channels that I love, I think are very down to earth, and I find them super relatable. Emily Noel comes to mind. I've been really into Dr. Dre lately. Like, I've always loved her channel, but lately she's just on point. Like, she has 1 million and something subscribers, but she just seems very honest and like down to earth. But anyway, in general, across the board, the bigger someone gets on YouTube, the less relatable they become. And I think it's possible to stay down to earth even as you grow. I think smaller creators don't feel like they have as much to lose when it comes to just expressing themselves and also speaking up on things that matter to them, whereas a lot of bigger channels, not all of them, like I said, but a lot of them water themselves down and use their privilege to stay silent on a lot of things for the sake of being neutral and appealing to the widest audience they can, and also staying on as good terms with as many brands as they can. That also goes along with the fact that the bigger you get, the more relationships you're going to have with brands, and the more that has to factor into your decision making. So there's a lot that goes into it, but I do think in general, I agree. But there were a few responses like this saying that like smaller channels are better, and my question always is like, okay, what happens when that small channel that you really like does end up growing and getting bigger? Do you end up losing a bit of trust just because they're bigger, or do you think it's possible for one of your favorite once smaller creators to stay relatable and trustworthy and all of that? I'm curious. I like to think it's possible. I certainly hope so. I mean, I think that there's just an extra layer of relatability with smaller channels. Most small channels also have, you know, a job outside of YouTube and maybe just a lifestyle that's more similar to the average viewer. And also it's easier for smaller channels to interact with their audience more because their audience is just smaller. So, let's see. Hating on ColourPop doesn't make you a conscious consumer. Yes, agreed. I did talk about this in a recent video. I'll link it below. It was my video where I was counting up how many products I own from each brand, and it ended up turning out that ColourPop was the brand I own the most products from, even though they're not a brand that I consider to be a favorite by any means. But I think that there are many valid, very valid criticisms for ColourPop. I mean, they're a brand just like any other. They've got problems. There's no unproblematic brand. I mean, you know, the smaller indie brands I think are probably the closest you could get to unproblematic, but even some of those have issues. So it's very hard. I mean, no brand is perfect. They're brands. They all suck to some degree. And ColourPop is one of them. ColourPop sucks in many ways. But I was saying in that video, I feel like they get a disproportionate amount of flack mainly from the beauty community compared to other brands, and I think other brands deserve just as much flack as they do, if not more. For example, ColourPop is thought of as the brand that started the idea of using the fast fashion business model in makeup. ColourPop was founded in 2014. E.L.F Cosmetics was founded in 2004, so 10 years before ColourPop. There's an article where they interviewed the founders of E.L.F, and they were saying from the very beginning they wanted to emulate fast fashion in the makeup industry and, you know, be able to release a bunch of new products all the time and keep their costs low. ColourPop certainly didn't start it. Now, they are one of the main brands to perpetuate it, so I'm not denying that ColourPop has contributed to, you know, the overconsumption of makeup in the beauty community, but then there is, you know, the counter argument that because ColourPop is mainly a direct-to-consumer brand, and I know they do sell in some Ultas, but the majority of their sales are just direct-to-consumer, just coming straight from their website. They are able to cut down on a lot of like store waste that way. You know, a lot of people complain about them. They're always like selling out of their new collections, and that's because they're only producing a limited supply so that they don't have more than they need and that it's not going to be sitting in a warehouse for months and months and eventually expiring. They're only producing what they know they're going to sell, and then that's it, which obviously has its drawbacks for the consumer. But, you know, a lot of people also bring up that they're not the most POC-friendly brand, like especially when it comes to their eyeshadows and their cheek products like blushes. They don't have a good shade range for those types of products, which I completely agree. That's a problem. They should be called out on it. They need to fix that, just like all brands do. So I'm not even necessarily trying to defend ColourPop, because I don't even care that much about the brand, but I just think other brands deserve equal criticism to what ColourPop gets. I haven't even started on my eyeshadow. So for my eyeshadow, I want to do a combo of my Urban Decay Stone Vibes and my Aether Rose Quartz palette, which is funny because these are both kind of like gemstone inspired palettes. I feel like this video is going to end up really long, but that's okay. Sometimes a long video is fun. Using this shade here as a transition color. Threw a little bit of Antidote from Stone Vibes just to kind of make it a little peachier. Alright, I'm gonna throw some of my favorite shade, Tiger's Eye, on the lid. It's this like rose gold kind of shade, very dimensional. Actually, you know what I might do? Just you wait. I just love the sparkle of these shades. Alright, what I'm gonna do is top that with this shade called Reawakening from the Aether palette. It's this like duochrome reddish gold. So pretty. I've done this before and it always looks beautiful over the Stone Vibes color. Alright, isn't that just such a beautiful combo? Very light. I'm not gonna add a ton of like depth to this look just because, I don't know, I'm in the mood for something just light and springy today. Adding some of Hexed, which is this warm brown, to the lower lash line. I think matte skin is better than overly glowing skin. I think this just depends on your skin type. I do think that, you know, there is a point where glowy skin can be taken a little bit to the extreme and it ends up just looking greasy. I would rather my skin look greasy than like crusty and dry though, and for me, like if I did a really matte base look, it's not gonna look cute. Like I would much rather have my skin look too glowy than too matte. But if you're the opposite skin type, you probably feel the opposite. So I don't know, I think it really just depends on the person. Alright, on the lips, I'm gonna do a red. I feel like this will look really pretty. This is like a warm red. It's called Fiesta by Clove and Hallow. Pretty! Oh, that's such a pretty color. I just love a vibrant red. Oh yeah, I'm doing a little brow gel here from the Jordana Feather Brow in Blonde. Is that what it's called? Yeah. I am very pleased with how this look turned out. I loved that eyeshadow. I think these two palettes look great together. That is it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and just chatting about some of your unpopular opinions. Thank you so much to everybody that shared your unpopular opinions. But that is all for today. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you've not already. I'd love to see you again soon. I upload about 3 videos a week, and hopefully I'll talk to you very soon in my next video. Bye!